Alright guys, TacticalRab here, and today I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The majority of top teams have confirmed their rosters going into 2023, and it's going to be a very competitive season at that. The top teams should be very closely matched, one might argue, but Censor believes that OpTic tectors are very highly ranked, understandably, by the community going into the upcoming season, but actually overrated in his opinion. He believes that Scump actually might be the best player on the roster, but they're not quite as good as a team as many people believe. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Well, I'll just put this on the big screen for you guys. This is the vintage Nagafen Dolphin Dive in Advanced Warfare. Still no idea how he actually did this, but like, I mean, look at him just flopping around the corner there. It's absolutely hilarious. I mean, look, what is going on here? This is like, well, you weren't allowed to dolphin dive. It wasn't a movement in Advanced Warfare if you guys haven't played this game, but somehow with a combination of the slide and the dash and the crouch or whatever, you could make it look like you were dolphin diving. From his point of view, he wasn't dolphin diving. He just, like, from his point of view, he was just standing there and just killed Clayster for the, you know, to finish off the 1 versus 3. But I mean, yeah, I saw someone post on Reddit a little clip of this saying, you know, Shotzzy 20 minutes into the beta or something. So I went to find the original so I could put it up with audio and stuff. So I mean, yeah, good at times for sure in Advanced Warfare. And then, yeah, Nagafen. I mean, what a player, honestly. I think Nagafen actually said he wants to return as like a coach this season or something. So hopefully that'll work out for him because, I mean, yeah, Nagafen with the routes, some crazy moments from the jetpack era if you guys are OGs. But I mean, yeah, of course, we know that going into Modern Warfare 2 with the beta coming soon, we believe there's going to be some dolphin dive mechanic in the game. Shotzzy says it's actually rather broken and can be abused a fair bit, so we'll see if moments like that from Nagafen will be the go-to challenge meta going forward into the new title. This just a Mohawk real quick, because of course we've seen the possibility of, okay, what's happening with Crim, Clay, Assault, General. I know some of you guys are mentioning, look, why not put Mohawk in that category? I think understandably so, as an option there for the Paris Legion. That could be, or Vegas Legion, sorry, I'm gonna, well, do that for quite a while, as they are now. Yeah, apparently Mohawk, iLLeY, they're running it back in some Cold War, like Chals and stuff like this, so pretty cool stuff. I guess there's some sort of tourneys going on. So yeah, a difficult one for Mohawk, right, because this guy's really built himself up from, like, right at the bottom of the Challengers pitch, all the way to the top of it, winning back-to-back championships, and just isn't getting his chance. There's been some rumors that he's had a chance and won't get a chance for whatever reason, or like turned down a chance. I'm not exactly sure what's going on in that situation, but I mean, yeah, he's going to have to run it back again in the Challengers, Challenger sides. Maybe he's going to get picked up at some point. Of course, Vegas can still change their minds and pick this guy up, but yeah, he's going to go for the three-peat of Challengers Champs victories maybe this season, which is just so remarkable that you win Challengers Champs and don't really even get a look in on a pro team. So kind of crazy stuff. Let's just mention this CDL and Warzone once again. More drama going on here. There was some free falls going down between Blast and Aiden last night. Blast comes out on top 30-26 here on Speedball. Like to see Blast versus Biffle on this map. He's pretty built different here. But I mean, yeah, interesting stuff because Blast, we know, is returning this upcoming season to the Challenger side. There's other players, Scraps, Waskin, these guys that are going to try and make that happen as well. So we'll see what goes for them, of course. Many, you know, notable players. Blast was in the league with Decimate on the Los Angeles Guerrillas right back in Modern Warfare. So, I mean, yeah, maybe it'll work out for them. I don't reckon too many of these guys will actually get a shot this season, but I think there's a decent chance that many teams make changes as the season begins because, especially at the top of the league, it's pretty damn competitive up there. And if any of the top teams have a bad start, it's definitely on the cards for potential roster changes. So there was the P1 podcast that Los Angeles Guerrillas did last night. aBeZy was there, Unrational from the Warzone side. Censor and Arcitys, of course, new recruit to the roster, discussing plenty with regard to Rostermania, what they feel like plenty of these seem to actually go to deliver on, which are the key free agents that should still get opportunities, why they're not getting opportunities. And there was a few names they mentioned on that front, right? They actually brought this up on screen. Biggest free agents, Asim, Clay, Crim, Priester, Mohawk, right, for example. And they were discussing these guys. Asim to me is quite an interesting one because you would imagine a player like Asim would be quite highly regarded, really, just because, I mean, look, he won an event last season, very much like a role player SMG that is, well, pretty crucial factor to many teams. I remember I did a video back in Cold War where people were saying that effectively OpTic Chicago needed an Asim. They needed a player that could run that type of role, do the dirty work, be the glue to the SMG lineup of the team effectively. And yeah, obviously Asim is up and down. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not so good. And this season we kind of saw the ups and downs of that on the Los Angeles Guerrillas. Of course, he had his chance to go to Florida Mutineers. They wanted him, they would have got him, but he decided to stay on LAG, probably for, you know, salary reasons and stuff like this, and also probably looking ahead. And I don't think Asim's necessarily made a bad call here, just because he's probably going to still be on the bench next season at the Los Angeles Guerrillas. He's a restricted free agent, right? If he, well, he can go elsewhere, but someone would have to buy him out, which seems unlikely with the amount of teams that are left and the, well, unrestricted free agents on the market that might be more attractive. Havoc and these type of guys for the Florida Mutineers, for example. well. So Asim might still be on the bench for the Los Angeles Guerrillas, and I don't honestly think that's terrible for him, because if you look at LAG, they've got Arcitys, they've got Spart. These two guys are locked into 3-year deals. Like, that is going to be the AR line for LAG for quite some time to come. They've locked that in. Huke and Neptune, though, I think those are the two question marks, and if things go wrong with the team, one of the SMGs are going to be the players that are going to get swapped out, whichever one you think it's going to be. And Asim is sitting there on the bench waiting for that chance. So I don't think where he is actually terrible. Priest, we believe we know where he's going to go, to the New York Subliners. Clay, Crim, of course, we don't really know what's happening there. Clay maybe to Paris Legion. But Gunless actually wasn't so happy because his name wasn't even featured on this list, right? And as Gunless says here, he was looking at this and saying, you know, like, hang on a second, what's going on? Why am I not being mentioned in this conversation? Like, I mean, yeah, Gunless you'd have thought would have been right at the top of a list of, you know, kind of big name free agents, but seemingly maybe he's not going to get a spot anywhere either next year, and maybe that hasn't changed over the last few days. So difficult stuff for sure. But of course, well, many were giving their thoughts on the teams going into next season. Doug Center Martin certainly was. Most of the opinions that were given on the podcast were like, yeah, this team's going to be, it's kind of funny really, because I think aBeZy called about 6 different teams, top 3 teams, or something like that. That's an exaggeration, but like, I think you look at a lot of squads this year and you say, damn, that's a good team. That could be top 3, that could be top 4. And then you're like, hang on a second, I've said this for about 5 or 6 different teams at this point. Like, not everyone can be top 3, top 4. And Doug reckons that one of the teams that will be top 4, but is not maybe as good as some people believe, is none other than OpTic Texas. We of course saw the drama this past season when Drazah was saying that OpTic were overrated. Rambo wasn't so happy about it, but of course that was a different scenario, and now this is going into the new season where, well, Doug believes that yes, the team is good, it's a solid team. Scump is, you know, probably their best player, he reckons, actually, but saying that really they don't have the firepower that some people think they do.
I think this team has a lot of potential. Yeah. What do you think, Doug?
I mean, they're a little bit overrated in my opinion. I always think OpTic's overrated though, so you could hold that against me if you want. But to me, OpTic always seems like a Slayer-heavy team. They always want to get the best Slayers in the game, and it's not always about getting the best Slayers, it's about getting the best winners. So I don't know. I have a bias, but I think they're a good team. They won a major. Obviously, Ender had his injuries. It probably set them back a little bit, but overall, like, when you got to play in the match, you got to play in the match, and they underperformed at champs. They were supposed to do better. They are good friends. Ender's probably their IGL. He's probably the hardest worker. Seth obviously isn't getting any younger, so he's probably playing with a sense of urgency at this point, which is really important. So I think they're going to be very motivated, and I think they're going to have a lot to prove going into next year. But I just look at their roster on paper, and people just think it's a God squad, and I don't think that they're a God squad. I just think they're a really good team with some good players that really like each other, and I think they're top 4. So they're good. They're competitive. They could win. And it's a good thing that they're sticking together and they can run it back. Seth has all the time in the world. He could play for another 10 years, 20 years if he really wanted to. I just think that there's so much talk around Seth retiring. And I think for Seth, I don't know because I'm not him, but if I'm Seth and I win a world championship and I've done it all in the scene and I've been around for a very long time without taking a break, it might be creeping up in my mind. But I do think Seth is very passionate. He's very passionate about what he does. He has so many opportunities to do other things and make more money, and he's clearly not in it for that. He's here to win, and he's here to play, and he's very talented. He's probably the best player in this roster, honestly. So I don't know. It really just relies on him and how much work he wants to put in for the green wall and how much longer he wants to do it for. And it would be great to see him around for a very long time.
So we've seen this overrated discussion with regard to OpTic before. We saw going into the World Championship, right? A video that came out from the Los Angeles Thieves where Drazah was asked who's the most overrated team. He said OpTic without too much hesitation. And I've said this before, right? The fact that OpTic have the most fans, the team that has the most fans generally is going to be more on the kind of overrated side of the spectrum, because if the community is 50% OpTic fans, it might be even more, right? Who knows? Like, you know, fans of a team are going to consider their team to be maybe slightly better than they actually are in reality, and therefore, like, you know, the teams that have the least fans are going to be probably more underrated. The teams that have the most fans are going to err on the side of overrated. That's just naturally always how it's going to be, I think, in sports. Now, Rambo, of course, when Drazah had this to say, was not happy about this, right? Because Rambo came out and effectively called it a brain-dead take, because he said that, well, look, Drazah's not really considering the fact that we had a difficult time OpTic last season, right? They had all the iLLeY issue was the key one, and like the thumb injury that came through, and therefore, you know, saying they were overrated despite having to deal with those issues, Rambo was like, yeah, you know, that's not really called for, right? Now, Doug's situation now is slightly different, right? Because he's saying going into the new season, based on the roster that they have, that they're still overrated, right? So this is slightly different to the Drazah situation, because this is just his perception on this team and the actual potential of this roster going forwards, which is kind of interesting to me. So, like, where do you guys think this team stands? Because to me, FaZe are going to be the final boss. They're the number one. They are still the team to beat. Los Angeles Thieves, I think they're the reigning world champions, right? They won Major 4 as well. They should be up there top 4. You've got the Seattle Surge. They decided to stick it out. OpTic Texas decided to stick it out. Then you've got the new Toronto team, right, with Scrappy and co. Like, their team has, I think, a pretty high ceiling as well. Minnesota Rokkr as well, another one which is going to be on the cusp of potentially even getting some event wins if these other guys, the top dogs, aren't quite as good as we expect them to be. So does Doug have a point here, right? Or is he just, saying this for impressions, or like just because he's faded as well, sometimes he is, or like, is he actually on the money here? Because maybe this, does this team have less firepower than some people think it does? Like, is this team actually not as talented on paper as some other teams actually are around them? Because, like, where does the community expect this OpTic team to be? Like, last season, obviously, they were top 1, top 2 before the iLLeY thing happened. So I guess that's the perception of a lot of the community, that OpTic are going to be, top 2, top 3 team, maybe, like, at minimum, really. And, Doug thinks they're probably going to be top 4, maybe, rather than top 3, top 2. So maybe he's right in some sense that, if they're actually a top 4 team and not a top 2 team, then I guess they're overrated in a sense. But I don't really have a keen sense right now of what the expectation is for this OpTic team going forwards. But obviously, they think that sticking together was their best chance. They could have made a change maybe to try and upgrade, or, what they thought might have been an upgrade, and then they decided really wasn't an upgrade, getting maybe a Cammy or a Hydra or whatever. That would have made for an interesting roster. It doesn't make a better roster. Not particularly sure. This team won an event. They won the very first event last season. Well, they won the first major, right? There was the Kickoff Classic won by Toronto, but they won Major 1 at their home major, of course, last season in Texas. So I think certainly at the start of the season, the community's expectations will be, and the OpTic fans' expectations will be, for this team to be, top 2 probably at minimum. Doug doesn't really believe that it's quite there. He actually had some, great words to say for Scump. I thought that the fact that he said that Scump could compete for like 20 more years if he wants to, I thought was pretty outrageous. Imagine a 50-year-old Scummy coming up onto the main stage talking trash. That'd be good times. But I kind of doubt that's going to happen. But he actually reckoned that Scump might be all around their best player, which kind of tells me that he's not particularly a big good. He's also gassed up Shotzzy. So it doesn't really seem to me that Censor's the biggest fan of Dashy, or the biggest fan of that kind of iLLeY Dashy AR duo, because I think he's a big fan of the other guys on the team. So our OpTic's slightly overrated going into the new season. It's an interesting one to me because I really don't know how to call the top really 6 teams in the league right now, because Thieves, they have to be up there. They have to be top 4 consideration at minimum. They're the reigning champions. OpTic, of course, are going to be up there. There's no doubt. This team is incredibly talented on paper, but compared to the other squad, Seattle Surge, overall, Seattle probably had a slightly better year than OpTic. Of course, you've got to consider the iLLeY injury, which also is a risk, right, with the OpTic team, and maybe that's partly what Doug is considering here. Minnesota Rokkr, I think they're kind of the best team that hasn't stuck together effectively, apart from Atlanta FaZe, because they are obviously different breeds. LAG, they could be up there. Atlanta FaZe, they're confirmed. Toronto, and the other teams I haven't mentioned are probably going to be slightly lower down the pecking order, but, out of all those teams I just mentioned, it's really difficult to call what the top 3 is, what the top 4 is. I think most people would put OpTic in those categories, maybe even top 2, but Doug reckons they're not going to be quite that good. So definitely intrigued to your thoughts on that one in the comment section below. Does Doug have a point here, or has he got no idea what's going on? But yeah, we'll have to see. I think this OpTic team, really, it does come down to what happened at the start of the year, because they always do well at the start of the season. If they don't do well at the start of this upcoming title, and they don't, make finals, win an event or whatever in the first couple of months or so, then you've got to wonder, because usually they go downhill as the season progresses, not massively downhill, but usually they end up top 3, top 4, something by the end of the season. Similar story really this time around as well in Vanguard, despite the iLLeY thing, of course, threw them off. So we'll be seeing in a few months' time whether Doug's thoughts actually here have any words. Speaking of OpTic, though, of course, the greatest champs winner of all time, the winner of this matchup was relatively clear-cut, you may well imagine. This is the bracket as it is presently going, so Freako, FaZe, and then, well, of course, the other semi-final would be determined by the winner of OpTic and the Dallas Empire. This certainly went the way of OpTic Gaming from 2017 Infinite Warfare. Good team, Dallas Empire 2020, don't get me wrong, but in fairness, this tournament was won online, and it was 5v5, but the voting was pretty ugly in favour of OpTic. I voted OpTic as well, to be fair, but yeah, 5,000 votes, 90% in favour of OpTic Gaming, so, they are probably going to romp the rest of this bracket, but we'll see them in the grand finals, I'm sure. Good run for Dallas, wasn't to be at the end of the day. Couple of Lion Man cards to close out the video here. Firstly, this one from Kenny, LAN only. Kind of remarkable how good the record of LA Thieves was on LAN overall. 19-9 on LAN overall. I guess obviously boosted a fair bit by Major 4 and Champs, but still pretty solid. And Kenny's numbers, especially as the season progressed, were pretty remarkable. His control, his hardpoint was very good at the end of the year. Damage, kills. LAN only doesn't really tell the whole picture with Kenny, because if you just looked at Major 4 and Champs, I'm sure you'd see a rather different story. And the numbers don't really always tell the whole story either, because Kismet Kismet's LAN numbers. He apparently had a 78 rating, 10 in 5 overall. But this guy's the absolute hill-time bulldog, right, to be honest. I mean, yeah, these numbers, the KDs, the kills don't look crazy, but if you watch the gameplay, you know that Kismet was having an awful lot of impact on the map. And Hydra is really the guy doing an awful lot of the slaying for the team. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new as always. Take care, and I'll see you next time.